At exactly 10 nautical miles out, the most advanced fighter jets in the U.S. arsenal didn't just malfunction, they died. Late autumn 1994, two elite F-15 pilots soaring through the pitch-black airspace over the Gulf of Mexico found themselves trapped inside flying metal coffins, their steering columns locked solid, their digital displays dead. They were no longer flying. They were being dragged forward by an invisible force, straight toward an object that defied every known law of physics. What they encountered that night was so terrifying, the military buried the evidence immediately. Welcome to the Shadow Ledger. Inside the highly restricted airspace of the Eglin Air Force Base water range, this was supposed to be a routine interception drill. Two F-15 Eagle heavy fighters, the absolute pinnacle of American Cold War aviation engineering, had been scrambled to intercept an unidentified target. The intruder had bypassed multiple layers of military radar, refusing to respond to standard IFF signals. The men flying these twin-engine Titans were elite tacticians, trained to maintain absolute emotional control under the most extreme combat duress. Yet, the official transcripts of their cockpit voice recorders reveal a rapid descent from professional confidence to cold, existential dread. The mission began under a clear night sky. Ground control at Eglin had picked up a faint, anomalous return on their long-range radar. It was hovering inside a secure zone used for live-fire missile testing. The object displayed no transponder code, held a stationary altitude, and ignored all radio inquiries on military distress frequencies. The two F-15s climbed rapidly into the dark, their afterburners carving twin trails of fire through the atmosphere. Their mission was simple: visually identify the intruder, escort it out of the restricted zone, or prepare for tactical engagement if hostile intent was demonstrated. As the fighters leveled off, their radar systems locked onto the target. The digital displays showed a steady, solid return directly ahead. The pilots prepared for a standard intercept, adjusting their vectors to close the distance. At 15 miles out, everything was proceeding according to the manual. The target remained stationary. At 12 miles, the pilots prepared to activate their high-intensity searchlights. But as the distance closed to precisely 10 nautical miles, the laws of modern physics and military technology seemed to disintegrate. Without warning, the radar screens did not just glitch, they died. The APG-70 radar systems on both aircraft suffered an instantaneous, total power loss. Simultaneously, the multi-function displays, which provide the pilots with their artificial horizon, fuel states, and weapon status, flickered twice and went dark. The head-up displays projected onto the windshields vanished. The cockpits were plunged into a dim, amber emergency lighting state, powered only by isolated backup batteries. The pilots were suddenly flying blind, stripped of the digital senses that kept them alive in the night sky. In the lead cockpit, the pilot instinctively reached for the radio to communicate with his wingman and ground control. The radio was dead. There was no static, no side tone, only an eerie, pressurized silence. When he tried to manually override the autopilot and bank the aircraft away from the target's last known position, the flight control stick refused to move. It was locked in a neutral position, held by a physical force that defied the hydraulic pressure of the jet's engines. He looked out of his canopy at his wingman's aircraft, flying just a few hundred feet to his right. Through the darkness, he could see the silhouette of the second F-15, its navigation lights extinguished, gliding in perfect, eerie synchronization with his own aircraft. Both jets were locked into a steady, unyielding glide path, drawn forward by an invisible electromagnetic tether. The pilots were no longer active operators of their aircraft. They had been reduced to passengers, trapped inside metallic coffins, hurtling through the night sky toward an unknown destination. Through the forward canopy, the source of the disruption finally became visible. It did not appear on any sensor, but to the human eye, it was unmistakable. Hovering directly ahead was a massive metallic disc. It possessed no wings, no tail fins, and no visible rivets or seams on its polished, dark gray surface. There were no jet intakes, no exhaust plumes, and no sound radiating from its chassis. It sat perfectly still in the air, absorbing what little ambient starlight remained, glowing with a faint, cold luminescence. It was a solid, seamless piece of engineering that did not belong to any known earthly aviation program. As the two disabled F-15s were pulled closer, the distance shrank to less than a mile. The sheer scale of the object became apparent. It was roughly the size of a commercial airliner, yet it remained suspended in the air without any observable means of lift. The air around the disk seemed to shimmer, distorting the stars behind it, as if a powerful gravitational or electromagnetic field was bending the very light passing through the space. The dread in the cockpits was absolute. The pilots were staring at a technology that bypassed their most advanced weapon systems with effortless, terrifying superiority. The tension broke not with an explosion, but with a sudden violent shift in motion. The metallic disc, which had been perfectly stationary, began to move. It did not tilt, banking like an aircraft to change direction. It simply slid sideways, accelerating with an immediacy that defied the limits of inertia. Ground radar stations back at Eglin AFB, which had been frantically trying to re-establish contact with the two lost fighters, suddenly registered a massive spike in signal return. Their screens showed the unidentified object moving at a calculated speed of Mach 5. At that velocity, any known human aircraft would be torn apart by atmospheric drag. But more terrifyingly, the object did not arc or curve. It executed a sharp 90-degree turn without slowing down. In classical physics, a right-angle turn at Mach 5 generates hundreds of g-forces. A maneuver like that would instantly liquefy a human pilot and snap the titanium frame of a modern fighter jet like a dry twig. Yet the object executed it silently, effortlessly, leaving no sonic boom, no heat trail, and no debris. As the object accelerated away, the invisible grip on the two F-15s evaporated as suddenly as it had appeared. The flight stick suddenly became loose in the pilot's hands. The cockpit displays flashed back to life, static hissed through the radio headsets, and the warning alarms screamed in unison as the aircraft systems attempted to recalibrate. The pilots, gasping for air as the sudden return of control flooded their systems with adrenaline, immediately initiated a steep dive, turning away from the intercept point and heading back toward the safety of the Florida coast. They landed their aircraft in complete silence, taxied to the hangar, and were immediately met by security personnel. The flight data recorders were confiscated, the cockpit tapes were classified, and both men were subjected to hours of intense debriefing. They were told that what they had witnessed was a highly classified test of an experimental electronic warfare drone, a narrative designed to quiet the rumors circulating within the base. But the pilots knew the mathematics of what they had experienced. No human technology, secret or otherwise, could manipulate gravity and electromagnetism to freeze a fighter jet in mid-air, nor could it survive a 90-degree turn at 5 times the speed of sound. The Eglin Air Force Base incident of 1994 remains one of the most compelling, unresolved military encounters on record. It is a stark reminder that our mastery of the skies is entirely conditional. The official debriefs chalked it up to an atmospheric anomaly. But an atmospheric glitch doesn't hijack 2 40-ton fighter jets, paralyze their avionics, and execute a 90-degree turn at Mach 5. So, what really took control of those pilots? Was it a highly classified black project we still don't know about? Or did they intercept something that didn't originate on this Earth? Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you want to uncover more forbidden archives they desperately want to keep buried, hit subscribe. The shadows are full of secrets.